Arnav, first of all, congratulations once again for securing 56th rank in 2022 Civils examination.
I would say regarding the interviews, I did got the help. I got the chance to interact with you, and the inputs that had been given to me, I tried to implement those in my studies.
UPSC Prelims is going to happen in another 3 days. Right after that, the next 100 days is a season for mains. Now in the mains, we see that some candidates, though they repeatedly write the mains examination, their scores in general studies do not predominantly increase. Though they study a lot of books, they have a lot of knowledge, information, even then their marks are like not more than 360, 370 in general studies. So now my question here is, in general studies, for every question, of course, you have to understand the demand of question and address it. But for economics, for geography, for history, for polity, do you have any separate ideas, tips or strategy like value addition, that if we do like this in geography, there's a chance of getting more marks. If we do these things in economy, we can get slightly more marks. So if you have anything like that, please share with us.
Yes, sir. So this was my third attempt in which I got this rank, and in my second attempt also I was able to clear the mains, but with a marginal score. So what I did this attempt was that whatever material that I read, I tried to compile that into some very short notes. For example, if I am reading some current affairs booklet regarding economy or environment or polity, then what I used to do is I used to pick up the data or the facts or for example, the committees from it, or any kind of reports if are being published by any of the government agencies, something like that. For example, Niti Aayog or Law Commission or something in the polity and in environment as well. So I used to make a compilation of all these, and I kept revising them when the mains came closer. I had around 5-6 pages of each subject. For example, there's a heading polity, and I have a 2-3 pages sheet in which I have a lot of schemes mentioned, a lot of data mentioned, a lot of committees mentioned, and a lot of commissions mentioned. Similarly, for geography or economy or environment, I have 2 to 3 sheets for each. And when the mains was near, around 10 days nearby, so I kept on revising those every day. So what happened was that I had a bunch of data, facts, and commissions and committees in my mind ready-made. And what I did was that I made a framework regarding how I will be approaching all those sections of the mains examination. For example, in paper 1, we have geography, we have history, and we have social issues and other aspects. In paper 2, similarly, we have each of the other subjects. So how I would be approaching the answer? A general framework. For example, there was a format that I used, that if there's a question on geography, then I will first of all define the issue, and then I will mention the whatever the main points are. And then in the conclusion, I will reflect what the present reflection of any of that event is. Or for example, in history, I would do that how certain event happened. For example, if there is a question on non-cooperation movement, then what led to non-cooperation movement would be my introduction, and then the body, and the conclusion would be how it impacted the present society, or how it impacted India. So that kind of framework. For example, in polity, I had the framework that I will try to start with some of the data. For example, if the question is upon number of judges, women judges in the judiciary, then I should have a ready-made data, facts, and schemes prepared for that in my mind, that I just have to drop somewhere or here. Like in the intro, I will use a data. In the conclusion, I will use some of the report or Law Commission's report or NCRWC's report. So these kind of frameworks I did for every part, every section of the syllabus. And that I think was really helpful. And I kept on revising those data, facts, commissions, along with that, the reports that we have, for example, Human Development Index, and for example, UNDP publishes many reports, and the World Bank publishes many reports. So whichever reports have India in a very brighter position, competitiveness index is there, and multiple indexes are there. So you just have to have a fodder material prepared along with the core GS material that we prepare, so that we have a lot of fodder points and we just drop them here and there. So that I think really helped me enhance my marks.
Okay, okay. Now see, Arnav, as you said, the introduction, the main body, and conclusion. In the main body,
Yes, sir.
of course, we can dump the data or footer material, which is a value addition.
Yes, sir.
But coming to
Yes.
introduction, you said that there is a geography. You'll define the term. In history, you'll
Yes.
define what led to that. Similarly,
Yes,
do
sir.
you have you kept something like we have to define the key terms in the question? For example, economy. The question is something about NPS, non-performing assets.
Yes, sir.
Would you still define what is NPA and then start the answer? Do you think definition is something used in most of the questions? General.
So generally, I would always look for some data for the answer to start, because in my opinion, it reflects better that if the question is on NPA, then if I have a ready-made data on the NPA, for example, any RBI report which has been recently published or something like that, then I think it gives a better tone to your answer, and you can later on mention. And there is no need to mention actually the NPA. So defining part would be one of the last approaches that I would take. And but that is not to say that it should be always taken as the last, because many times we cannot remember each and every data. So there should be a healthy mix of every type of approach. It shouldn't be a monotony, in my opinion, that in each and every answer of GS in all the papers we are just defining the key terms. Wherever you want to use, you should use data, committee reports, and definitions as well if you are not able to remember. So have a healthy mix of that, so that the monotony of the checker who is checking the copy is also broken.
Okay, okay. Now see, Arnav, what happens is most of the students for 10 marks question say some 1.5 2 pages, 15 marks question 2.5 3 pages. They'll try to maintain that length throughout the exam, and in the process of
Yes.
maintaining that length, they will not be able to finish 20 questions mostly. So
Yes.
when you wrote the mains this year,
Yes.
have you kept any limit that I have to really write 1.5 or 2.5 pages, or are there some questions which you have written lesser than 1.5 page? Means, do you have a hard and fast rule? This much answer we have to write, because an aspirant who wrote the mains once or twice, even if you do not know the answer, you can somehow bring it to 1.5 page to be very easily. You can think of some points. So have you kept anything like that?
Yes,
I have to write this much of answer.
uh, so like there are different approaches. I have seen many people and many people qualifying as well who have different approach about this. But what my opinion would be that I always used to complete whatever the space is given to me. So some way or the other, I used to spread out my answer in such a way that I am able to complete all the space that is given to me, either through diagrams or through any illustrations or through examples or any flowchart or any form. But I remember that in the last mains itself and in this mains itself, there was none of the pages in any of my mains answer that I left empty. So in some way or the other, I filled it either with diagram or anything.
Okay, okay. And coming to ethics, in ethics, have you used most of the philosophers' names, thinkers' names, more of the facts, or you wrote most of the definitions by yourself, your own ideas? Means which side have you bent mostly?
Sir, I have had a mix of both. For example, in the last attempt, I was not able to get the hold of it, but this attempt, my marks have also improved nearly 20-25 marks. And what I did was a healthy mix of both. That I will mention the standard philosophers, the standard thinkers, and their examples and their life as well. But I will also try to inculcate some of my as well, or verbally mentioning or clearly mentioning, then in different terms. But I try to personalize the answer a bit as well. So I think that worked. Like in the answer, if there's a quotation given and we have to comment upon that, then we shall start with very standard philosophers or very standard philosophies. Then we can also give a para about how we feel about that or what we did about that. So if any situation is encountered, but that entirely depends upon the question and the question paper, because there shouldn't be a mindset about that. So it depends upon the paper. You have to adjust accordingly. But I believe that it adds on to your performance.
So, no, see, now coming to specifically mains part, disaster management, internal security, society of India, world history, these topics. Okay, these
Yes, sir.
topics between after you clear the prelims to mains, these topic.
Yes, sir.
Do you think your answers are mostly static? Disaster management, security, mostly static footer material you have used, or mostly they're becoming dynamic and use current affairs, society of India?
Sir, what I used to did was uh, mix both of them, because some static knowledge, because I had been preparing since 2018. So I have a bank of knowledge static that is stored to some extent in my mind. For example, if there's a question on security and a question on Naxalites, or there is a question on disasters or forest fire, something. So basic static portion I have in my mind, but I try to make it dynamic by inculcating the present happening. For example, if there's a question on volcano and I'm able to put in some of the other events that have happened. So I try to put in that event. I try to put in the recent data that I know about that thing. For example, if there's a question on disasters and a recent event has happened. For example, sir, in paper 2 and 3, I used to do current affairs inculcation a lot, because if nothing is coming to your mind, then introducing your answer with the current happening is also, I believe, very good. For example, a question on disaster, then at that time there were disasters in Joshimath. So many times I introduced the answer with current affairs as well. So that gave my answer, I believe, a holistical approach.
Okay. Then now coming to the case studies. In case studies, the biggest problem is everybody understands the case, yes, and everybody will have their own points for the case. However, to get more marks in ethics, yes, some people try to use stakeholder approach. Some people try to use some other approach, means they want to use it forcefully. If it's not required, yes, if the question does not ask, yes, you to identify the stakeholders, they intentionally, yes, will make a diagram of stakeholders for almost every case study. Like that, do you have any format of, did you follow any particular format for the case studies, or you wrote like general studies answers? I mean, like polity, economy answers.
Sir, I did have certain frameworks in my mind, because I have gone through a lot of toppers copies itself, and they have also mentioned the answers very beautifully, and I got some of the basic frameworks regarding how I should proceed. So there are multiple ways how a case study should be approached. One is the stakeholder approach, and other are a definitional approach, and like we define the situation, we mention what are the challenges in it. So at least I think if we have a framework of 2-3 approaches of how to start a case study, then juggling among those so as to break the monotony, because last time was what I did was everything was very much monotonous. Every time, as you mentioned, like the stakeholders and then the dilemmas and all that. But this time I tried to break that monotony. So either I will start with a definition, or I will start with the data itself, whatever suits the question, but not every time just the stakeholders and the issues. So if there are 6 case studies, then maybe in 2 or 3 I would have mentioned the stakeholders, if not explicitly asked, and in rest I would have different approach. For example, even diagrams also I have had inculcated. So breaking the monotony is the thing, because it becomes the questions you must have seen in ethics now with the case study. Almost every case study has the same question.
Yes, yes.
So even the writing, during the writing itself, we come short of how to express ourselves. So innovation in that part, I think, is helpful.
Okay. Now then, see, you said diagrams. These days, in order to enrich the answer to get more marks, either a map, yes, or a flow chart or some diagram, some kind of diagrams they're forcefully using, and it became a norm. Yes. So if we have to, yes, ask you in history, geography, society, overall, have you kept a rule that I have to draw some kind of flow chart, some kind of representation, diagram, map, in order to score more marks? Or most of your answers are diagramless, without flow charts, most of your answers. In particularly, say, economy, history, geography, GS 1 to 3. 1 to 3.
Sir, I had thought about that, and like, for example, every this component, for example, history, environment, polity, economy, each of them require different kind of expressions, if apart from the writing. So if, for example, in history, I had in my mind that if the situation suits, then I will draw a timeline. So timelines can be beautifully drawn. They'll occupy the space as well, along with representing your facts and values in a right manner. So I used to draw timelines in history. There is no hard and fast rule, but I tend to draw timelines in history. And then in geography, sir, I had in my mind that, okay, if there's slightest possibility of mentioning that thing on a diagram, then I will draw the diagram. I had drawn world map diagram also twice in my GS papers, I think. And India maps, I believe I would have drawn nearly 5 to 6 India maps I must have drawn. So in geography, if there's an option, then I used to draw diagrams definitely. And in environment also, there's not much possibility to mention a diagram. So what I used to do is flowcharts in environment work, for example, reduce, reuse, and recycle. For example, environment, social governance. So these types of key things or key diagrams, if kept in mind, then it could be sprinkled here and there to break the monotony and improve the answer quality. In polity, for example, there's not much scope of mentioning anything diagrammatically, but if possible, for example, if there's a question on development of basic structure of the constitution, then we can draw a timeline how basic structure doctrine has evolved. So as according to the subject, you have to decide which way I have to use. But overall thing is that there should be a healthy mix of diagrams as well as just one thing I wanted to mention to all the students who are watching this. One thing is these are the things that I have implemented, but there are multiple ways to climb the mountain. So please opt for only those things that work for you. You pick up an idea, you work it for 1 week or 2 weeks. If they work for you, then implement in your preparation. Otherwise, you can drop that idea. There are hundreds of ways how you can reach the top. You can definitely opt for that one.